I want to congratulate you and We the World on the 20th anniversary of 11 days of global unity. Together, you, me, and we can create a better world and have fun doing it.
Thank you, Dr. Jane Goodall, for helping We the World and all our partners to celebrate over 20 years of 11 Days of Global Unity. Welcome to the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit. From September 11th to September 21st, which is the United Nations International Day of Peace. The 11 Days of Global Unity Summit features visionary leaders and activists, profound dialogues, and bold calls to action. Thank you for joining us. The 11 Days of Global Unity Summit is produced by We the World, a global coalition-building nonprofit organization based in New York City and founded in 1998 by Rick Olfig. We the World annually connects and promotes thousands of socially conscious organizations and businesses to generate public awareness and action for peace, justice, and sustainability and transformation. You can take action and support the work of We the World by going to we.net. My name is Birgit Ben-Eli, and I'm the Director of Strategic Engagement and International Outreach for We the World. Today's 11 Days Summit panel is on the theme of peace for the International Day of Peace. To watch any of the 11 Days Summit broadcasts, you can register for free by going to 11daysofglobalunity.org. 11 is a numeral and 11daysofglobalunity.org. Thank you so much. Now let's bring in our host, Rick Olfig. Rick is the founder of We the World at we.net and the co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity. Welcome to the broadcast, Rick Olfig.
Thank you so much, Birgit, and thank you all so much for joining us. Welcome to the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit. Well, we're living at a time when we see an expansion of a culture of us versus them, intolerance and polarization, which is draining the human spirit that we need to address our greatest global challenges. On the other hand, we have literally thousands of organizations and their movements with people who are devoting their lives to the well-being of people and the planet, promoting what we call we consciousness that serves the common good. So let's hear from our guests who represent this shift towards a culture of peace and nonviolence.
Today, I'm excited that we will be joined by Quanta Dawn-Light and Marc Friedland. They are co-founders of the Rotary Club for Inner Peace in Charlotte, North Carolina, and longtime workers for peace and community development. Their special guest speakers include Dr. Ira Helfand, Nobel Peace Prize recipient in 1985 and 2017 for his work on the abolishment of nuclear weapons, and Reinhard von Hennig, Honorary Consul of Germany for North Carolina. Quanta and Marc will present the framework of the program today, the work of creating a culture of peace.
Welcome to the broadcast, Quanta Dawn-Light.
Thank you very much. And as we say Happy Earth Day, so I'm going to say Happy World Peace Day. And my co-host, Marc Friedland, is going to introduce our next speaker, Reinhard von Hennig from Charlotte, North Carolina, also happens to be our Honorary Consul for Germany. Thank you very much, Marc.
Thank you very much, Quanta. And I'm here to introduce Reinhard von Hennig. He's lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Was a charter member, along with myself, of the Charlotte International Rotary Club, and is the founder of Bridge House Law Firm. Has been doing a lot of work in the community over many years, and well known in Charlotte. Reinhard, thank you for being here.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. First of all, Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to participate today at this International Day of Peace. Thank you, Marc, for the kind words of introduction, and thank you, Quanta, for reaching out to me to be with you today. It's an honor to join today on this day designated by United Nations as International Day of Peace, a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace, both among nations and people. As a German Honorary Consul, I am very mindful. I stand here mindful of our German history. My country, Germany, knows too well what devastation means after peace is lost. Twice in the last century, the world was brought to brink of wars that all began in Europe. But we also know what is possible when peace is restored, but also nurtured, because just to restore it, it doesn't mean that it's there. It needs to be nurtured. I've seen a personal lesson on peace and transformation when I was a Rotary exchange student. I spent time in Johannesburg. The country of South Africa was still under apartheid, and Nelson Mandela was still imprisoned in Robben Island. I lived in a society marked by separation, separate schools, separate buses, separate park benches. But I also saw sparks of imagination, sparks of courage, and people who dared to imagine that there is a future possible and that this future could be very different. Let's pause and reflect on a quote from Nelson Mandela. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is inspiring others to move beyond it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's inspiring others to move beyond it. Let's take a moment to think when in your life you feared something. Fear was present. Was it in a community decision? Was it in a relationship? Was it in a workplace? But someone's courage brought something forward. It was someone who spoke up. Maybe it was you who had to speak up. Peace building also means to get over your fear, the fear of being singled out for your initiative. Peace building requires one person to step forward and say, yes, let's move beyond that stage where we are right now. I've seen South African peaceful transition when I was back in Germany, but it reminds me that this is one of the great miracles where systems change, injustice can be changed to justice, and all of that without running into the risk of a civil war. Germany experienced its very own miracle. The miracle of peaceful change between the systems between East and West. On November 9, 1989, I stood with friends and fellow students in front and later on top of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall, one of the most visible points of division between systems, countries, nations, ideas, ideologies. The Berlin Wall came down and I was there and I felt peace. Within 1 year, East and West Germany were joined together as one country. Not through violence, but through dialogue, courage, and the imagination, the shared vision of people getting together to develop an idea what a better future could be. The integration of the two German states was not easy, and today, 35 years later, we still look back and we continue to grow together. We still see that there are divides, but we also see that those divides have been bridged and can be bridged. Peace in Europe did not happen by chance. Let's think about the Marshall Plan. Let's think about how a devastated Europe was supported by the United States. Let's think about how after World War II, European leaders like Robert Schuman, the French foreign minister, recognized that peace would only endure if former enemies become partners. He proposed pooling coal and steel production together between France and Germany, two countries who were fighting not so long before that. But let's create two systems together. Let's create one system together where industries which are so essential and had fueled the war, the coal and the steel production, were now being interchangeable. And therefore, collaboration trumped. In his words, world peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the dangers of it threaten it. And this was Schumann's declaration on May 9th, 1950, 5 years after World War II ended. Let's think about how those creative efforts proportionate to dangers, how he called it, might look today. What are creative efforts needed we can all participate? What creative efforts are needed for peace in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in our own cities? Creativity means thinking different, finding a way where partnerships are likely where they were unlikely before, reaching across the aisle, talking to people which you should not talk to, which was historical teaching. But yes, talk to people on the other side of the aisle to build trust where trust was broken. My stories, my experiences from South Africa, from Germany, and from Europe teach us, in my opinion, something profound. Peace is not passive. Peace is not simple the absence of war. Peace is built. Peace is built through dialogue, through nurtured cooperation. Organizations like We the World and gatherings like today are a good example of this principle of dialogue. Albert Schweitzer, a German-born humanitarian and Nobel Prize winner, once said, "The first step in the evolution of ethics is a sense of solidarity with other human beings." Let's pause and think about the United Nations Day of Peace. Peace is not merely the absence of war, it's a creation of an environment where all can flourish. And this is the United Nations message for today. Peace is not merely an absence of war, it's a creation of an environment where all can nourish. So I invite you to close your eyes. Close your eyes and think and wish and imagine an environment where everyone can flourish in our neighborhood, in our cities, in our nations, in our world. What would be different? What would you do different? Who would be included? Who would be excluded today? Which one step could you take today, this month, to bring this vision to reality? Let us carry forward the ability to build bridges. Let's support Rotarian initiatives around the world. I'm excited to listen later to Dr. Ira Helfand and to be inspired by other leaders. But I'm not here to be inspired. I'm here because from inspiration comes actions. Those actions are needed to build forward a community of peace in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our nation, and the whole shared planets. A German proverb goes, Frieden ist nicht alles, aber ohne Frieden ist alles nichts. Peace is not everything, but without peace, everything is nothing. Let's choose dialogue today. Let's choose compassion over indifference and peace over conflict. Thank you. And with that, I give it back to you, Marc.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. That powerful, wonderful, inspiring, and action-oriented presentation. And now I will introduce Dr. Helfand, with whom I work through Rotary about the abolishment of nuclear weapons. And as we know, without without the fear of being annihilated at a global level, we cannot really have true peace. So thank you so much, Dr. Helfand, for receiving twice the Nobel Peace Prize for your efforts in 1985 and 2017. And I will let you speak to the rest of your presentation and your affiliations and your actions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Quanta. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today on this International Day of Peace about what is, I think, unquestionably the greatest threat to peace that we face today. You know, we are consumed with the conflicts which are going on currently in the world appropriately. We worry about what's happening in Gaza and Ukraine, in several areas of Africa, Sudan, Darfur, Congo, Tigray. But we tend to forget the overwhelming threat posed by nuclear weapons. It wasn't always like this. You know, back in the 1980s, everyone was acutely aware of the fact that nuclear war could take place, and that if it did, it would be a catastrophe for the entire of humanity. But when the Cold War ended in 1990, we all began to deny the possibility that nuclear war could happen. The world was safer when the Cold War ended than it had been just before. But the problem didn't go away. The weapons didn't go away. There were still thousands of nuclear warheads waiting for the international situation to get bad again. And it has, in dramatic fashion, such that, you know, experts like former US Defense Secretary William Perry have been warning us for 7 years now that we are closer to nuclear war than we have ever been, closer than we were during the Cold War. He first articulated that assessment back in 2018. 4 years before the second Russian invasion of Ukraine. And since that invasion and the flood of explicit nuclear threats that have flowed from the Kremlin since then, the situation in the world has gotten even more dangerous. Relations between NATO, the United States on the one hand, Russia on the other, are the worst they've been since the end of the Cold War. But there are other factors as well. Relations between the United States and China are the worst they've been since the 1970s. India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations, fought a war this year. The situation in the Middle East has taken a dramatic turn for the worse with regards to nuclear weapons, with the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities by Israel and the United States. And conditions in the Korean Peninsula remain extraordinarily tense. All told, so far this year, 5 of the 9 countries which have nuclear weapons have been engaged in warfare. And any one of these conflicts could have escalated to a large-scale nuclear war. So it is time for us to end our state of denial and to accept that the danger of nuclear war is real and must be confronted. And in view of that, I want to remind us for a few minutes of what that would look like. Because even as we have tended to put the whole danger of nuclear war out of mind, we have forgotten what will happen if nuclear weapons are used. We've just gone through the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. And at that time, many of us saw images of what the nuclear weapons used against those cities did. There were very powerful warnings about the power of these weapons. But what we must really understand is that Hiroshima and Nagasaki do not begin to prepare us for what will happen if nuclear weapons are used again today. Because the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was 15 kilotons, 15,000 tons of TNT. Most of the weapons in the US and Russian arsenal today are between 100 and 800 kilotons, 6 to 50 times more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. And if there is a war between the United States and Russia, it will not be one bomb on one city. It's going to be many bombs on many cities. I like to use a model to help us understand what this destruction would look like. We don't know the exact targeting strategy of either the United States or Russia, but it is generally assumed that a major target city like Moscow or New York, or if China were involved in the war, Beijing, a major target city would see 10 to 15, perhaps more nuclear weapons targeted on it. It's hard to describe all of these bombs going off at once. So the model of a single very large explosion is a little bit easier for us to understand. The megatonnage that I'm going to describe in this model is a little bit greater than we expect would hit these cities. The destruction that I'm going to describe is an underestimate. Within a thousandth of a second, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Within this entire area, everything would be vaporized. To a distance of 4 miles in every direction, the explosion would generate winds greater than 600 miles per hour. To a distance of 6 miles in every direction, the heat would be so intense that automobiles would melt. And to a distance of 16 miles in every direction, the heat would still be so intense that everything flammable would burn. Paper, cloth, gasoline, heating oil, plastic, wood, it would all ignite. And you'd get hundreds of thousands of fires, which over the next half hour would join together into a giant firestorm, 32 miles across, covering over 800 square miles. Within this entire area, the temperature would rise to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. All of the oxygen would be consumed, and every living thing would die. In the case of New York, or Moscow, or Beijing, we're talking about 12 to 15 million people dead in a half an hour. And if this were part of a large-scale war involving these countries, this kind of destruction would take place in every major city in all of them. All told, perhaps 200 to 300, maybe even 400 million people dead in an afternoon. And those who survived would find themselves in a wasteland which we cannot imagine. None of the things that we rely on to keep ourselves alive would still be available. There'd be no internet, no cell phones, no electric grid, no public health system, no food distribution system, no system of law and order. And in the months following this initial attack, the vast majority of people in the countries that fought this war would also die. They would die from starvation, from radiation poisoning, from epidemic disease, from exposure to the elements. That's just what happens in the countries that fight the war. But this would be a catastrophe for the entire planet, because all of these fires would put 150 million tons of soot into the upper atmosphere, blocking out the sun and dropping temperatures across the entire planet an average of 18 degrees Fahrenheit. In the interior regions of North America and Eurasia, the temperatures would drop 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We have not seen conditions on this planet that cold since the last ice age. And under these conditions, all the ecosystems which have evolved since the end of that ice age would collapse, food production would essentially stop, and the vast majority of the human race would starve to death. According to a study that was published in the summer of 2022, in the first 2 years after such a war, 3/4 of humanity, 6 billion people, would die of starvation. That same study also looked at what might happen with a much smaller war that might take place, for example, between India and Pakistan. And it found that while the climate disruption would not be quite as severe, it would be bad enough to trigger a famine. And that famine in the first 2 years would kill 2 billion people, 1/4 of humanity worldwide. The study only went for 2 years. The famine would continue, and we don't know what the ultimate death toll would be. What I have just described is not the plot of a movie. This is the danger that we live with every day that we allow these weapons to continue to exist. And we have to understand that if we do allow these weapons to continue to exist, it is not a question of if, but only a question of when they will be used. We have been extraordinarily lucky throughout the nuclear weapons era. On many occasions, we have come within minutes of nuclear war. We keep dodging bullets, and sooner or later, our luck is going to run out. Now, that's the bad news, and there is plenty of it. But there is important good news as well. Nuclear weapons are not a force of nature over which we have no control. These are little machines that we have built ourselves. Most of them are about the size of the chairs you're all sitting in. We have dismantled more than 50,000 of them. already since the end of the Cold War, and we know how to dismantle the 10,000, 12,000 that remain. All that is lacking is the political will to do that. And that is where we all come in, because we need to create that political will. Internationally, there's the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, which is building support throughout the world for the elimination of these weapons. Here in the United States, where I live, we formed the Back from the Brink campaign, which is building a national movement to convince the United States government to provide leadership to the rest of the world and enter into negotiations with all 9 of the nuclear weapon states to work out the details for an arrangement to eliminate their weapons in a verifiable, enforceable way according to a timetable they agree upon. This is not pie in the sky thinking. This is what needs to happen if we're going to survive. And we all need to do our part. No one of us is going to solve this problem alone, but each one of us has to do that part of the job, which is ours to do. I belong to Rotary. One of the key tenets of Rotary is to put service above self. We all want to do something good with our lives, to make our lives meaningful. Those living today have been given the opportunity to save the world. And there is nothing better than anyone can ever do with his or her life. So let us take up this task. Let us eliminate these weapons, and let us save the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Helfand. We really do appreciate your very candid, open, and realistic image of what would happen if indeed we were to use those horrible nuclear weapons. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Quanta.
now I would like to introduce our past district governor, Kevin Kendrick, to give a message from our district as a Rotary past district governor. Thank you so much, Kevin, and please share with us what you have done in the past and what you are doing now to make our world a better place where we are free of fears and have peace based on without fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Quanta, and a special thanks to Dr. Helfand for those incredible remarks. Your information on modeling is both alarming, but also helpful to help us understand the gravity of the presence of these weapons of mass destruction in our midst. So thank you very much. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the history of Rotary and its connection to peace. So from the very beginning of the organization in 1905, Rotary has emphasized fellowship and understanding across professions and cultures. This laid the foundation for the peace-building values we have always championed. In 1914, as war clouds were gathering over Europe, Rotarians from the Hamilton, Ontario Club in Canada proposed a resolution before members of that convention urging Rotary International to lend its influence to the maintenance of peace among the nations of the world. Delegates at the convention agreed and passed this resolution only weeks before the start of what would become known as the First World War. After World War I, Rotary promoted international goodwill as a way to prevent future conflicts. The idea of peace through service became a recurring theme. In 1921, Rotarians met in Edinburgh, Scotland, for the first convention outside of the United States. And it was at that convention that the phrase advancement of peace and international goodwill was added to our Rotary International Constitution. In the 1930s, Rotary saw our founder, Paul Harris, traveling the world engaged in tree planting, which he called friendship trees, and which were intended to help create serenity and peace within the communities in which we reside. The years before the onset of the Second World War were troubling times for Rotary as we witnessed clubs being systematically shuttered due to persecution. Nonetheless, during the 1940s, Rotary clubs worldwide discussed how they could foster peace during and after the war. And in fact, in 1945, Rotary had a major role in the creation of the United Nations at the direct invitation of the United States State Department. Over 40 Rotary members participated in the San Francisco conference that drafted the UN Charter. Rotary's presence at the founding reflected its mission of promoting international cooperation and conflict prevention, as well as recognition of that from others. Rotary has a history of advocating for peace through education and exchanges, with some clubs embracing these concepts as early as the 1920s and 30s. This expanded greatly after World War II and provided young people opportunities to live abroad and develop mutual understanding. Our Rotary Foundation established scholarships beginning in 1947, which funded international study, including fields related to diplomacy, humanitarian work, and peace. In the 1960s, Rotary began educating children in high schools about our core values and principles, including peace building, in clubs we called Interact. Later in the 1960s, that concept was pursued at colleges and universities through clubs that we called Rotaract. Both Interact and Rotaract continue to this day, promoting the importance of building peace in ourselves and within our communities. And in 2002, we created dedicated Rotary Peace Fellowships at top universities around the world, including Duke UNC here in North Carolina, the University of Queensland in Australia, Marquette University in Uganda, and our most recent one in Istanbul, Turkey. Since that time, we have trained more than 1,800 Peace Fellows from more than 140 nations. Clubs worldwide support peace initiatives both locally and globally, including those focused on promoting and encouraging dialogue across ethnic, political, and religious divides, those focused on refugee resettlement and support, those focused on trauma recovery for war-affected communities, and those focused on mediation training and community reconciliation efforts, all of which are issues that confront us currently. Rotary has 7 areas of focus, one of which is peace building and conflict prevention. We continue to see peace not as the absence of conflict, as you have heard, but as the presence of fairness, opportunity, and understanding, supported by projects in health, education, water, and economic development. Indeed, we recognize and accept the principle that until we have peace, true peace in our communities, our service projects will not succeed. In short, Rotary has been a peace-building organization for over a century through the United Nations, youth exchange, scholarships, and now the Peace Centers. It has consistently tied service to the goal of a more peaceful world. Peace is the common element in the universal sustainability, and as Rotarians, we view that as our most solemn obligation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Kendrick. We really appreciate your kind message. And now I'd like to introduce you to Ayla Volpe, who is a filmmaker of a documentary, You Can't Hold Spring Back. And she is going to be sharing a prayer for world peace with us. Thank you very much, Ayla.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to say a prayer for unity and peace. O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence they are all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at the table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all. Thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all. Let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father God, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind.
Thank you for that, Ayla. That was beautiful. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Ann Evans. Ann is a retired family nurse practitioner, educator, and international health consultant. She's active on quite a few boards, including South Sudan Medical Relief, Alaska Health Project, South Sudan, Kagando Clinic Foundation in Tanzania, and the International Rotary Fellowship of Healthcare Professionals. Ann is currently a member of the Charlotte International Rotary Club and actively involved in the pursuit of health and peace initiatives locally and around the world. Ann?
Thank you, Kevin, for that introduction. I call myself a BUU, a Buddhist-leaning Unitarian Universalist, having practiced with a Soto Zen group in Chapel Hill and being president of the Zen group at the same time I was chairing the worship committee at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. But it seemed to me like a very good combination. In 1992, I had a sudden chest pain and ended up in the hospital, misdiagnosed, and was given exactly the opposite kind of treatment. I actually was bleeding and was put on a blood thinner. A few days later, one of the cardiology residents shared with me an article about 3 patients that they had killed doing exactly the same thing. I made it out of the hospital, and when I did, I packed a backpack and I flew across country to San Francisco. I spent a day in the Oakland Zen Center and then went to the Institute of Noetic Science meeting. And as I walked into the meeting, there were 2 people who I didn't know at the time had spent a year in private meditation with a Tibetan monk. And Joel was saying, who are your contemporary heroes? And I said, Thich Nhat Hanh and the Dalai Lama. And I still believe that these are 2 of our greatest peace people through the years and the heroes of our time. Thich Nhat Hanh tells the story of from a Vietnamese about the chickens that when they're born and they look alike, and so in order to be able to fight with each other, they paint their faces. And he says, putting colors on our own faces to make ourselves a stranger to our own brothers and sisters. We can only shoot others that are strangers. Real efforts from reconciliation arise when we see with the eyes of compassion. And that ability comes when we see clearly the nature of interbeing and the interpenetration of all things. In our lives, we may be lucky enough to know someone whose love extends to animals and plants. We may also know people who have, although they themselves live in a safe situation, realize that famine, disease, and oppression are destroying millions of people on earth and look for ways to help those who suffer. That's what led me to South Sudan, as I met someone whose whose life was devoted to working in South Sudan. And so I went and I had a bracelet on that said, "Make a difference." And when I got there, everywhere I looked was an opportunity to make a difference. I thought I was going for one visit to do some training with the national medical staff, but it ended up capturing me in a way that I couldn't let go. And so that's been now 15 years ago. I was there 3 years ago and I watched cataract surgery done. And I saw that within a few minutes, a person who had been blind for years could have those cataracts removed again and be able to see, and total transformation of their life. And these two American eye surgeons, one, Dr. Jeff Tabin, Professor Emeritus from Stanford University and co-founder of the Himalayan Cataract Project that now goes by the name of Cure Blindness Project. And the other was Dr. Lloyd Williams, who had just become the Director of Global Ophthalmology at Duke. And they started teaching me about eye disease and that 43 million people in the world are unnecessarily blind, that we can do something about it. I say at the cost of less than a good appetizer, we could relieve their blindness. And I remember standing there in the village thinking, well, I have work to do, because I have the work to do to see how we can create greater access to care, but also how can we create so that more people are aware of the needs of the world. And so Thich Nhat Hanh goes on to say, poverty and oppression bring war. In our times, every war involves all countries. The fate of every country is linked to the fate of all others. When will the chicks of the same mother hen remove the colors from their faces and recognize each other as brothers and sisters? The only way to end the danger is for each of us to do so and to say to others, I'm your brother, I'm your sister. We are all humankind and our life is one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that powerful and inspiring message. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite my Rotarian colleague, Marc Friedland, speak about the Inner Peace Rotary Club, which he had envisioned 10 years ago. Thank you so much. Marc, please.
Thank you, Quanta. All these talks are really inspiring and interesting. I want to refer to what Ira Helfand was talking about, because it took me back to my teenage years. I might date myself a little bit here. And I still recall to this day the night of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I went to sleep that night worried about whether I would wake up in the morning, because there would have been a nuclear bomb dropped on my city. And I lived with that fear for all my teenage years. And somehow I got out of it because I was able to get in touch with a teacher and taught me yoga meditation. And through yoga meditation, I got my inner peace. And I realized that the way to overcome fear is to have hope. We have to have hope that there can be something better, that we can fix things, that this world can be a better place, that there's good in people. Even sometimes we don't believe it when it's hard to imagine, but there is good in people. And I traveled around the world for many years, finding that good in people. Recently, I had the opportunity to start this Rotary Club, with the help of Quanta and a few other people. And the idea of the Rotary Club of Inner Peace, it's to coincide with Rotary's mission of world peace. with the idea that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to have world peace without inner peace. That is, how can you expect to create world peace if you don't have your inner peace? And there's many ways that people find their inner peace. I'm not here to tell anybody how to find their inner peace. There are many ways. Whichever way you find your inner peace, that's great. But it's essential to have inner peace in order to have world peace. Because if we don't have inner peace, we're living in fear. What's one of the biggest fears? It comes from economic insecurity. Economic insecurity is one of the biggest causes of the or the biggest obstacles to world peace. And how can people who have economic insecurity find their inner peace? It's very difficult. So we try to make a world where people not only can find their inner peace, but can help to eliminate the obstacles to other people's inner peace. In Rotary, we tried to do that in many different ways. But I've talked to many Rotarians, and I said, we talk about service above self, but if we don't take care of the self, how can we do the service? That is, there's many people that will do service and work themselves to the point where they're not able to do service anymore. No, you have to take care of yourself. You have to find your inner peace. And so in our Rotary Club of Inner Peace, we try to encourage and support everybody who's not just a member of our club, but a member of any club of Rotary, and also to work in our communities to help people in our communities to find their inner peace. And then once we find our inner peace, as part of that, to help other people to find their inner peace, to help remove people's obstacles to inner peace. And many people are working around the world to help removing obstacles to inner peace. And we need to work in concert with all those people, as we're doing here with We the World, to try to help give hope to people that there is a way to overcome all the problems that we have in the world. There is a road to find inner peace and world peace at the same time, that the world can be a better place. And we can only achieve that by understanding that people are essentially good. If we think that people are bad, you'll never find inner peace, you'll never find world peace. We'll always be afraid of each other. No, we should spend time to try to communicate with each other. It's one of the things I like about Rotary. We have people of all different kinds of backgrounds, people of all different kinds of politics. We have all different kinds of people from different parts of the world, from all different economic spectrums, many different things. And when we all get together to support service above self, all those barriers get eliminated and we're all working together as human beings. And that's the spirit we need to see in the world, where we all recognize that we're all human beings just like each other. We all have the same problems. And ultimately we all have the same solutions. Instead of fighting against each other, we should all work together to help achieve all the things that we know that we can achieve, all the things that we know that humanity can achieve. Nobody can do it alone. If you think you're alone, you feel helpless. But there's a world community, and we should work together. And when we do that, we'll achieve great things. I want to thank everybody who's participated in this program today. I think we made a few steps ahead towards world peace and maybe a few steps towards inner peace. And let's keep moving together in the future. Thank you all very much. Nice to see you all.
Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate your presence and your wisdom and wonderful messages that you have given for world peace. Now, I return the program to Rick and Birgit. Thank you.
So this has been a wonderful, amazing, inspiring conversation.
I am extremely humbled and I am in deep gratitude for each and every one of you and your wonderful messages. And thank you so much. May we have world peace and may you have inner peace. Thank you.